excited to be around the players and the group again. Obviously, there's been some adversity um, and heartbreak around our program a little bit, but all we can do is keep going, and we have each other. And I think the players are doing a good job of pushing through and working hard this week. So, questions?
Coach, on behalf of all of us, just wanted to say we're so sorry for what happened. Our thoughts and prayers are certainly with Coach Clark's family and everyone on part of the UCF football family. I know it's been a tough week. At what point could you even try to shift focus? Because obviously it's a big game, the Big 12 opener this week. At what point could you even start thinking about we got to get ready for a football game?
Well, the best thing you can do is keep going. And I'm better when I'm working, but we're still going to get our work done, and we're still going to work hard. I just think the emotions of the last couple of weeks have worn people a little bit. That being said, the players have practiced really well and responded really well. The biggest thing is that, heartbreak for Janelle and Braxton and Gianna, and I know Terry and the University of UCF are going to do everything they can for them and financially, which that says a lot about the type of people that work here and that are here. And all of us will be supportive in any way we can. From my standpoint, I just miss my friend. I wasn't around him as long as I've been around some other people, but he just had an energy and a spirit about him, and one of my favorite guys I've ever been around and coached with. So it's just a tough deal, but we got a football game to play too.
Scott, what's been your message to the players? I mean, you talked last week about the transparency involved through all this. How have you guys been there with family and faith and trying to keep everyone together through all this?
Yeah, I think for those of us with faith, that's what we have to lean on. And we're not without hope because of that, and comfort because of that. Sean had faith, and so our faith means that we know he's in a better place. I think it puts football in perspective. One of my first messages to the team every year is, let's be great at football. Football's what we do. We love football. Football's not life. And I think every time something like this happens, it makes you realize, as fanatic as people get about winning and losing a game on Saturdays, it's trivial compared to real things in life. And I think if football's not the most important thing, and your faith is, and your family is, I think it makes you even better at football because it keeps it in perspective. And something like this is definitely helps to put things back in perspective.
Coach, we've seen you before here where you're able to rally the team around something, whether that was Hurricane Irma back in 2017 to just moving on later on in the season. With all that experience, how do you rally them in a situation like this, as difficult as it might be?
Well, I think first of all, I didn't remember the name of the hurricane was Irma. I would have lost that trivia contest. That's nothing like this. I mean, that's just missing a game. That's not a big deal. This team is starting to develop a real love for each other, and they want to play for each other. I think they feel that way about the coaching staff, and Coach Clark was probably at the top of that list as far as his guys actually caring about and loving him, because he cared about them and loved them. And when you have that kind of bond, I think you end up fighting and playing for each other. And I feel like that's what our team did last week. I think they'll do it again this week.
Coach, along those same lines, just how did Sean connect with his players, and what kind of influence and impact do you think his legacy will have on them going forward throughout the season?
Yeah, first of all, it's not just our players. It's every, the outpouring of messages and affection for him that I've received speaks to how many people that he's come into contact with and that care about him. Kids are smart, and they can tell if somebody actually cares about them and loves them and has their best interest at heart, if they're just there to use them as a tool to win football games or move ahead. You know, Sean's compassion and passion for his players and love for his players was real, and they knew that. And that's why he fit in so well here. And he was a perfect example of the type of man that I want in our building.
Scott, was there a moment, I know he wasn't here long, but was there a moment where you knew you had the right guy, not just a coach, but the right person to be around your football team and on your staff?
Yeah, when I interviewed him, it was obvious. Because who Sean was, he didn't hide it. He was who he was, and his everything that was great about him shone through right away when I met him. Obviously, a really good football coach too. But like I said before, you know, that's not as important as other things in life.
You said he's been one of your favorite people to be around. So what are some of those memories you've been able to have with him and create with him during the 9 months you guys worked together?
You know, when you work with somebody as many hours as we work, you know, you start to develop real bonds. I mean, we spend a ton of time together. He always had a smile on his face. He and I had some private discussions because we both have been through some really hard things in this industry and this sport, and I think we kind of shared a common sense of how things are and how to approach things because of some difficulties that we've gone through. And he and I talked about those things a lot. He was great for me to bounce ideas off of as somebody else that sat in the head coach's seat. And you know, I just wish I had more time with him.
You mentioned the players kind of rallying together and getting back to work. Have you guys given them the resources to kind of process the feelings and then kind of the suddenness of what happened? I know he's been in the hospital for a few weeks, but it sounded like things turned pretty suddenly. How have the players kind of exercised the resources or kind of begun to process this?
We have resources. Terry does a good job with that. We have resources available for guys that need it. You know, but everybody kind of has to process it on their own. And, you know, it's harder on the O-line than anyone else, and the coaches probably. Not even hold a candle to the family, but, yeah, all those things are available for the guys. And like I said, you know, I'm the best when I'm working and have my mind occupied with other things, and I think football and playing for each other has given our guys that too.
Kind of on that same vein, you've been practicing the last couple days. How has that been to kind of get the mind off of it and to kind of get to football and same thing with the players to kind of get your mind off of this tragic?
Yeah, exactly. Game planning was therapeutic for me. Hard to concentrate at times. Tuesday practice wasn't our best. I think it's just the emotion of everything drains you a little bit. Today's practice was really good, and you can feel the guys coming together and wanting to play for him and for each other. And we got a big test on Saturday, and we gotta be ready to give it everything we got.
Can you speak to what Coach Bear has been able to do to try to keep the guys together? Obviously, this is really tough on him. He might have been, you know, closest to Coach Clark than anyone, and just how he's been filling in. And was there maybe some help you were going to be able to find midseason to kind of help with the O-line as well?
Yeah, first of all, Alex has done a great job. You know, he's been around Sean enough that they speak the exact same language and would coach the exact same way. Players love him too, so he's going to do a good job stepping up for us. We kind of looked for some relief pitchers to come in and help us. You kind of need more than one guy working with the offensive line just for numbers. And Danny Hope ended up coming in. Coach Hope was head coach at Purdue, worked with Sean for 10 years. And he was over in Cocoa Beach, so it was easy. And it was a good fit since they were so close friends and I think approached things a very similar way.
Along those lines, Scott, what was that? You mentioned Danny, but being close to Sean as well, how much does that maybe help this? There's no way to ease the transition. I guess what you guys are going through right now is bringing in someone maybe he was familiar with him and maybe had the same kind of philosophies. How does that kind of help that transition?
Yeah, you know, it's like I think that helps a little. You know, the age differential isn't enough, but it feels like Danny's the grandpa and Sean was the dad and Alex is the son, and there's not enough years in there to make that work, but it kind of feels like they're all coming from the same place.
Do you feel like the players are in a place where they want to play for Sean and in his memory?
For sure. I definitely do. And again, that's just football, but our offensive guys and offensive line in particular spend a lot more time with him than some of the defensive guys, but I know it's affected everybody on the team.
Coach, I remember you've talked about how you want the team to be player-led. With what you observed, what have been some of the things you've seen the players do as they process this together?
Yeah, that's starting to take shape in practice and everything. If it's not going well, our players are making us run plays over again and speaking up if the energy's not good enough. And it's not all player-driven yet, but it's in a pretty good place. And, I don't know the conversations that are happening in the locker room, but I'm very confident that the right things are being said.
Scott, I'm sure there's some sort of plan to honor Coach Clark, whether before the game on Saturday or when you guys come back. Do you have some sort of way of paying tribute?
Yeah, it seems so trivial. We're going to put our sticker on our helmet with his initials, and you just wish there was something more than you can do, and you can't. And I think the best thing we can do is cherish the time that we had with him and try to fight on.
Kind of hate to kind of change the subject here, but obviously a big game with Kansas State. I know you've got connections to Coach Kleiman. Could you kind of speak on that? You guys, that was kind of your first coaching gig, right? When you were in Northern Iowa coaching on defense. Just what do you remember about Coach Kleiman from those days, and just maybe your overall impressions of Kansas State?
It's my second coaching gig was with Coach Kleiman. My first was at Kansas State. I was a graduate assistant there, I think, 2006. I loved my time in Manhattan. Really good fan base. Being from the Midwest, it was a fun place for me to live and fit me well. Left there to go to Northern Iowa and worked with Coach Kleiman on the defensive staff. And, just a ton of respect for him. We were friends, still are. He's done a great job with that program. And, they've been really close to winning every game they've played. And I know coming off a bye week, they're going to have smoke coming out of their ears. Our kids know that too, and I think they will as well.
You're going on the road for the first time this season. It's the Big 12 opener. I mean, how does that kind of galvanize the team when you're all together on the road, you against a hostile environment?
Yeah, to this point, every challenge we put in front of the kids, they've done a pretty good job with it. This is a whole new challenge. Fighting through emotions of the week, going on the road, playing in front of an opponent's crowd. Some new challenges that a lot of the guys, frankly, haven't faced yet. So we're trying to prepare them as well as we can, and it's going to be a tough test, and we got to try to give ourselves a good chance.
K-State started the year in Ireland, and I know a few years ago you did that with Nebraska. There's kind of a theory that there's a little bit of a hangover or difficulty getting back to things when you get back stateside. What was kind of your experience with that, and is it as difficult from a logistical standpoint as maybe expected?
Yeah, that's probably just coincidence. Now, you put a lot into that game when you go over there, and I think if you win it, it can catapult you, and if you're not careful, losing it can kind of set you back a little, but temporarily. They had a bye week. They've had a chance to kind of talk about things and resettle things, I'm sure. So we're going to get a good version of them, and we got to give them the best version of us that we can.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Our coordinator's in next.
Scott, let me.
We'll go ahead and take questions for Coach Grinch.
All right, Coach, obviously, on behalf of all of us, media, we just send the FUSF football family and Coach Clark's family our condolences, thoughts, and prayers. I know it's been a very tough week. Just kind of how do you shift focus? It's really tough. You get, serious news Sunday night, Monday morning. It's the beginning of a game week. I know Monday was tough to process, but how do sort of get the guys ready for what's going to be a really big game on Saturday.
Yeah, no, it's a great and sad reminder that just the world just keeps moving along, and it's not fair. It's not fair to his family, but it's unfortunately you're reminded just eerily so how the world keeps spinning for everybody else, and it's an awful feeling that way. Feels so terrible for his family. Your world changes in an instant. We get to go continue to coach football and go home to our families, and same thing with our players get a chance to hug their families this weekend and everything else, and that's not a reality for the Clark family anymore. And so it's a perspective builder, and so I hurt for them. I hurt for his children. And we walk by his office every single day. It's untouched, and you see, his family pictures in there. And I pray for his wife and kids.
Alex, how do you what has been your message to the players? I mean, Scott talked a little bit about the message overall, but what have you been messaged to your guys? I mean, they obviously had interaction with Sean. I mean, but what's been kind of to kind of maybe get them through what's been a really tough, difficult time?
Yeah, and that's, I think, probably the hardest part is you don't even know what message you want to give yourself because you're in this scenario where, not what do you like on third down? They don't cancel the game. They don't, not the me stories, but I remember my father-in-law passed away, and I remember picking up food at a restaurant on a Saturday night after the funeral, and you're just with the family all day, and your whole world has absolutely been rocked and will never go back to normal. And you go into a restaurant, pick up food, and it's just a Saturday night for everybody else, and it just smacks you right in the face. And that's our reality, and on a much smaller scale than what it is to be a member of his family. And so that's probably the hardest part is you don't know what messaging you're giving yourself, and you feel like every time you're focused on football that you're doing wrong by him. So doing as much same as we can. Obviously, it's a great distraction for the guys. Once you get on the grass and you're in the meeting room, you're forced and you're kind of just thrust into to that. But no, I don't claim to be good at it, and I'm not sure that we've done a great job. I don't know if you can.
Coach, what are some of the biggest takeaways from the North Carolina game that you look to either hone in on or improve on for what to go into this Big 12 opener?
Yeah, I mean, the answer every week, we got to improve in every area, right? And so I saw from an effort standpoint, I thought I was pleased. The minute you say something, you kind of worry about the messaging to your guys in terms of saying, okay, that's as hard as we possibly could play. But I like the effort piece. I think we've kind of talked about it in here, and we call them knockdown pieces, a play that might go for 5 yards and it gets knocked down for 7 as opposed to being a fatal defensively. I saw that, and we've seen that for the most part in the first couple of weeks, not just this past weekend, and that's got to be a staple for who we are and what we are. When everything goes right for an offense and they get yards, not points, then you're kind of working in the right direction. Obviously, we want everything to be a TFL or no gain type of thing. But I thought the effort was good. Obviously disappointed with the long drive in the third. The messaging on that as well is there's plenty of opportunities to get off the field. We got to make a play to do that, play or plays. And so there's from a takeaway standpoint, obviously very pleased, 2 takeaways, and just how the impact that can have on a game. But on the same token, if you only get 2 and you got them so early, what happened to the rest of the opportunities over the course of the game? Because I can get, obviously tilted in our favor early, and then all of a sudden get swung back in their favor if they're able to get a hand on the football or something like that. So don't be content with just some early successes that way. So there's a lot to coach off of through the first 3 weeks, and certainly excited to get the outcome we got.
How have you seen the players coping and handling practice through this adversity this week?
Yeah, I think for them it's go play football. And I say that it's not fair to have them do that, but it's what's required. I think they've done a good job of it. I think it's as you structure things and you're in the meeting room. I mean, the walkthroughs and you're on the practice field. It's day and age where guys don't probably tell you as much as maybe they used to because we're all kind of new, and so it's a unique atmosphere that way. But I think they've handled it well. I think what's again doing what's been required of them in that moment is kind of how I would describe doing it well, and so try to honor him this weekend.
Obviously, Coach Clark was closer to the offense, but how have you seen players on the defensive side of the ball kind of helping lift the team up, and how have you seen players just generally kind of lift each other up?
I think it would be a question specifically to the players, as they're around each other and those things. It's one thing Coach Frost has done a tremendous job in his time here, better than some places in the country in terms of you don't feel the OD like we're separate programs or something along those lines. But he sat next to me in team meetings, and there's a void, and I'm going to make real sure in my time here no one sits in that chair, which had nothing to do with me, but has everything to do with him. But no, I think the guys have kind of rallied around each other, which is good.
In the time you guys work together, what's kind of your lasting memories of Sean and the relationship you guys have started to build?
Well, yeah, and all of us have had tough moments in this business, and you never want to compare an assistant coach to a head coach, and you just know that chair is so much different, what you have to deal with. But you got the unique perspective as a guy that was a head coach for a long time, especially at a place he loved so much. And I think as coaches, maybe sometimes you think you're sharing the trauma of losing football games or not having successes that you expect to have or had at other times and stuff like that. But it sometimes has a tendency to kind of bring guys together in terms of shared experiences and those things. And so, he was one of those guys that just, showed great perspective in it. What was a uniquely funny guy and had a great humor about him. Obviously seriousness when it came to the football side of things. But a guy you could ask about his head coaching perspective on certain elements, things, and have those type of conversations as an assistant coach. You think you have all the answers, and he'd been in that chair type of thing. Just as you talk football. But family guy, and when players are coming up to him and asking him how his son's doing in baseball, and some of those things, well, there's no box score in the paper, so he's talking about him, which is really, really cool. So that's a shared experience as a dad.
Coach, first road game of the season as well, Big 12 opener. What's your message to the team as you prepare for the challenge ahead?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to go on the road, you got to embrace it. You got to remind yourself why you decided to play Power 4 football. Some guys have played at this level, some guys haven't. Obviously, just a great environment this past weekend, so it's not. But they're cheering for you as opposed to against you. But just as a competitor, when the crowd is quiet, things are going well. When you get on the road, but you got to be able to handle the other side of it. And adversity as much as you feel it at home, it kind of rains down on you on the road. And so then you got to decide if a bunch of guys in purple are clapping, if that's going to wreck you. Or can you stick your chest down, your shoulders back, and kind of respond in those moments. And so until you're in them together, which again, that's the uniqueness of new programs every year type of thing, and new guys, we got to see it through together and expect them to obviously attack adversity and those things. It's not that we have not had adversity, but again, they'll say it a different way on the road. And again, I think for most guys as competitors, it excites you, when the crowd is raining down on you.
What are the challenges that Avery Johnson and really the Kansas State offense presents to your defense this weekend?
Yeah, the multiplicity. I mean, unfortunately, I have history with them, and I say unfortunately for a reason, right? I mean, and this comes out of complete respect to that staff and what they do and how they attack you and use their weapons. And the quarterback has always been a big piece of the puzzle for them. You got a guy with speed traits, keep plays alive. He can make bad plays good. He's got the arm to direct it downfield if you get sloppy in some of those things. If you sell out for the run, he can beat you over top. And then they got some weapons from a skill standpoint, which again is just historically them. Whether it's coming from the backfield as a tailback or wide receiver. The speed is different, and you got to respect that. But it's very difficult to pinpoint, going against these guys that okay, this is what you need to stop, and then you can start there, and then the list keeps just getting longer and longer and longer. And then when you got a quarterback with some experience and kind of been in the fire and in battling, which he's been doing this year, like you just again the word respect comes up, and so you better respect him, and you better not let kind of like I mentioned is a good play offensively turn into a fatal. You got to fight and scratch and claw to keep him out of the end zone.
It had been a long time since Lewis Carter had seen the field. So obviously the target, he didn't play against A&T then the bye week. So how do you think he performed coming back and looked like he played really well against UNC?
Yeah, I try really hard not to be too positive. I mean, just because you want to leave the carrot out for the guys, but it was fun to watch him on Saturday. I mean, that was, and you got to give credit to him and obviously Coach D'Onofrio coaching him up and all those things. But there's 20 again. And you kind of knew it in the moment as you're watching it in real time in the game, and we got the iPads on the sideline. But you kind of, maybe you give yourself too much credit. Well, that was a good call. No, that was a human that knocked that thing down. That it kept being 20, and you watch it on film on Sunday, and it was a great job by him. It was a great performance. I'd love to minimize it. He's got to do it again and all those things, but he's a football playing dude now, and we need him to be for us. But big fan of Lowe's.
Alex, what have you seen from that front defensive line last few weeks? You've got a lot of good pressure. I think you knocked 3 quarterbacks out, to be honest with you, in the last 2 games. But what have you seen from that group's pressure, maybe what you guys have been able to apply?
Yeah, I think the bar keeps moving as you go through it. The more disruption that you have, then now we want to see the production to come up with it. And there's certainly some moments where we're really close. And like I joke, I kind of with the guys, I kind of nerd out on TFLs and sacks and stuff like that, But that doesn't, in the end, is that the end all be all? No, that it's trying to keep them out of the end zone. So being disruptive and doing your job and stuff like that. Sometimes if you just stick with it a little bit, we can get you there just a half a click sooner. The production then will go up. So not a negative. I don't want to turn it into a negative, but I think that's something that we do have a high expectation for. Okay, the bar. Okay, we can. We expect to be where we're supposed to be. We're making plays at or near the line of scrimmage at times, which is good. We're affecting quarterbacks, which is good. Now we just like to see more negative plays, and selfishly, and they do too, believe me. But the impact that they can have on drives, getting offenses behind. The difference between 2nd and 9 and 2nd and 12, I know is 3 yards, but it can be astronomical over the course of a game and what it means to an offense, the pressure it puts on them, and some of those things. So, been pleased without question, and again, just trying to keep moving that bar up and up because I think we got some guys that can do some things.
Coach, the Wildcats are one of the highest teams in the Big 12 in terms of the least amount of penalties that they draw. Just after last game, just what do you do to keep this team disciplined so that way that, you won't give them free yards on penalties?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a number of different ways penalties happen. Some of them are aggressive penalties. Some of them are extremely stupid penalties. There's not a way to say it. The one thing for us from a discipline standpoint, with discipline, you can let your instincts take over. When you're disciplined, you can think about job description. You can think about how you're going to get to the quarterback, for instance, if you're talking about the defensive front. Be the same thing on the back end. With discipline, you think about playing the football as opposed to grabbing receivers or some of those things that you think about defensive penalties. Those are the most common as you go through it. And so, no, discipline matters because it gives you a chance to make a play. The minute I make a penalty, an egregious one, that whether it's a pre-snap one, and we want to pin our ears back and we want to go, and we want those guys certainly not scared to get off the ball because that has an impact. I mean, get off is real, but at the same token, obviously we got to make sure we're keying the ball, not listening to the sounds and all those things. So we're coaching it, believe me, from a discipline standpoint. And part of the message, regardless of penalties, is that the minute I have one, I negate the ability for myself to make a play. And I negate the ability for anyone else on the defense to make the play. It's the reality we'll never know. For instance, we get a pick the other week and then it's negated because of a penalty. So I think one, it's messaging, and two, I think they certainly understand it. But all that being said, we certainly want an aggressive unit and guys getting ready to get off the rock.
Can I have 2 questions? Is that okay? First question, just you know, when the conference play starts, it feels like it's another level of the season. Just how anxious are you to see your defense go against the Big 12?
Yeah, without question. I think there's reason there's conferences, you know, and there's commonality as you start going through the conference. Obviously, week one's obviously a little bit different because you're not seeing all the crossover film as you go through the season, but you get a sense as you're, you know, seeing whether it's evaluating other defenses versus the offenses you're playing on a particular week. It just very, you know, quickly I don't know, it becomes more of an in-house project as you're going through a conference because you get the common opponents and everything else. And there's a respect standpoint, too, to the conference that you play in. And there's good football, there's good offense in particular, specifically as it applies to us. And so you know that you're not going to get a Saturday off. Obviously starting this weekend and the environments that's attached to it. And, you know, we're not at a place with unique rivalries historically, but on the same note, you're at a place where now you're going to create them, and you can only create them by winning some games. And so we got a pretty big task to create that.
Just my last question. I mean, no matter what, this season's going to be different. How do you as coaches lean into each other and into the work to kind of get through it when mentally and emotionally it can be tough for you men?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things over the course of the season. I think sometimes, too, as coaches, if you're not careful, you can almost, you know, create a scenario where you're different than the general population. And why? Because we coach football, or the names are in the paper, or it's reported every week in terms of your wins and losses and stuff like that. And so I think it's real critical that as you go through it, you say perspective. Sometimes it's not to be overly dramatic, but it's almost like an enlightenment deal where you got to remind yourself that, you know, everyone else is going through the same thing. You try to get the outcome every weekend. You do or you don't, and then you try to go do it again the next weekend, and you try to do right by these guys. We don't get them as long as we used to, so those relationships are different. But, man, what an awesome responsibility it is for us to try to make them play their best football of their careers. And you're still, as a coach, your responsibility to say if you weren't here, they wouldn't have the same experience. And so you want it to be the situation where you get them to play above their ability level in terms of your time with them. And then, you know, specific to the scenario now with losing Coach Clark, is there's just an awesome responsibility on our part to somehow honor him. And you can put patch on jerseys, and there's a lot of things you can do, and none of it feels right and all those things. But no, it just it's a responsibility to make him proud and maybe give his family something to look to over the next coming weeks. All right, thank y'all.
All right, Coach. On behalf of all of us here, we're just so sorry for, you know, the loss of Coach Clark, and, you know, our thoughts and prayers are with his family and, you know, the UCF football family. I know it's a really tough week for you guys. Just what's this week been like? You're trying to process an unimaginable loss, and you got to get ready for a big football game at the same time.
Yeah, it's been a tough week, and that part's a process. You know, a team that's grieving, and you know, I think Coach Frost does a really good job with our team in explaining to them that there's a lot more important things than the game of football. That's, you know, our families and faith, and, you know, that's kind of just the message throughout the team. So those are good things to fall back on when you're dealing with really, really tough stuff. And, you know, the staff's obviously hurting. Listen, Coach Clark was as good as it gets as a football coach, but, you know, it's cliche when you hear this, but it's so true with him. Just an incredible person and human being, someone I looked up to, someone that mentored me in the last 8 months, a guy that I learned a lot from, was kind of the glue guy for the staff, larger than life personality, just incredible human being, and, you know, we're going to miss him.
Steve, how was you've seen the reaction from the players themselves? How have they been able to handle these kind of things, and what's been the message maybe to them to get through this tough time?
You know, credit to Coach Frost again, coming back to talking about the same things. When you have purpose in your life and there's an understanding, you don't ride the emotional roller coaster, then we can compartmentalize to get our work done. And our team's done a really nice job of that. And, you know, because of how much we all care about Coach Clark, we're going to get the work done. And we're going to do what it takes to prepare to win on Saturdays. You know, that's important. So that's what Coach Clark would have wanted us to do, is to move forward. But, yeah, certainly the reality is our guys are hurting, our staff is hurting and grieving for our friend.
Coach, what has it been like with Coach Bear taking up the role now in this situation? What's it been like working with him through this process?
Yeah, Coach Bear is such a pro, and here's a guy on our staff that has known him longer than anybody else and is close to him, was as close to him as anybody else, and he comes in and because of how much he cares about the kids and how much he cares about Coach Clark and his family and what he represents, I mean, he's just, I can't say enough great things about Coach Bear, his knowledge of football, what he's been able to do with these guys, and not just be a football coach, but be a mentor through a really tough time.
Coach, how, from your observations, how did Coach Clark connect with his players? I mean, clearly, a lot of people loved him.
Yeah, one is just how authentic he is. He's no different with the staff than how he is with the players when we're in meetings or when we're on the practice field. Like, yeah, he's got a bite to him, which every good coach probably needs, in particular the offensive line. But he meets each individual person where they're at. He's just had a crazy ability to be able to relate to anyone. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you're from the South or if you're from the West Coast or the East Coast. Just, yeah, he did an incredible job of being able to reach people on a level that's, I don't know, things that I try to do. Like, he's really who he is. He was an extremely authentic person, and I think that the kids, they buy into that.
Obviously, the whole team is grieving, and these are young men. These are young men, you know, still maybe experiencing a death like this for the first time. How have they kind of rallied and supported each other, and how have you and the coaching staff kind of helped in that part of the process?
When you get to be a part of a team, and that's something that we probably all take for granted, when you get to be a part of a team, you have teammates to support you. And grief is, you know, it's an interesting thing because you can go 5 minutes and be a normal day, and then you get hit, you know, randomly because of something that reminded you of our friend that passed. So I think just being able to rely on your teammates, and it's no different for us as a staff, just reminding each other how much we love each other and care about each other and why we do this. You know, these things sound cliche, but it's so real when you get to be a part of a team. And, you know, again, credit to Coach Frost and the rest of the staff with how we've really attacked this thing for the last eight months. Like, as a staff and as a team, we know that we can count on each other, and that certainly helps.
What do you feel like you most learned from Coach Clark as a mentor, and then what would you say are maybe your favorite memories that you had of him over the 9 months you guys worked together?
Yeah, well, Coach Clark was really able to help me. You know, when we start from ground one with this offense, and here's a guy with a wealth of experience, and, you know, stress level goes up because you got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time to get there. And Coach Clark's personality and the way he attacks and approaches everything was always with a smile. So that could always bring me back into a lot less dark place, you know. So put it this way, Coach Clark was the light that could illuminate the room and make things a little bit lighter for us. Me in particular, I thought that that is something that I aspire to be more like, and maybe be a little bit less negative at times. Like, he's just super positive, and I'm going to miss that. And definitely that's probably one of the biggest things I'm going to take from his approach, just generally about everything, whether it's how we're going to get the practice scripts put together and how we're going to get the film watched and the schedule. You know, the way he attacked that was always a little more level-headed, and that's something that I can take. And I'm sure that comes from his wealth of experience as a head coach, too. So that was good. And I forgot the second part of your question. Well, you know, when we first moved out here and none of our families were in town, we got to spend a lot of time together. So maybe some of those memories are going to stay private.
Coach, you have the Big 12 opener now coming up. Just what are you interested in seeing this team do now that they're going up against a Big 12 defense for the first time this season?
Yeah, our guys are excited to play this game. Outside of everything and the grief that we're going through, our players are still excited to play this game. And I think, me personally, what I'm excited to do to see is our guys go out and execute in what's I'm assuming is going to be a relatively hostile environment. It's our first road game. It's our first league game on the road. So I think probably more than anything, I'm excited to see the guys step up to the challenge, which they've done a nice job of, everything that we've thrown at them. No, it's not been perfect, but I think our guys are prepared and ready. Now, we got a couple more days of work we need to get done, but I think we're excited as a whole and a collective group, and I'm speaking for the offense when I say this. Man, we're excited for the challenge that we're going to get from playing against a really good defense in a hostile environment.
You have a challenge of facing a leader in the Big 12 in fumbles recovered at this point. Just can you talk about what you've done with the team just in terms of ball security?
Yeah, we put a premium on ball security every day. So, whether it's in our stretch periods, like we always have coaches and managers raking at the ball to try to that's our everyday stuff. So not like we did anything like outside of the norm, but yeah, that's been a focus is ball security. That's every day.
Steve, what's been your impressions of Taven Jackson so far and what he was able to do last week?
Yeah, I mean, Tay's been steadily getting better every day since he got here, and in particular, all things that we talked about a few weeks ago, where he really got the fire lit under his butt when he wasn't announced a starter for the first week, and he's been a pro and really pleased with the execution of the offense. I think the thing that Tay's doing a really nice job of is we get in a situation where maybe the play wasn't as perfect as we hoped it might be and the look we might have gave him on scout team, and here we are, we have to play off schedule a little bit, and we have to make some subtle changes. And what he's done a good job of taking care of the football and maybe taking a play that would have been a negative or just a 0-yard gain and turn it into a 2-yard gain. 2nd and 8's a lot easier than 2nd and 10. I think that's one thing that we're proud of what he's been able to do. It's not always going to be the flashy plays, the big-time throws. It's just the simple play of, hey, we really don't have anything here, and we're going to live to play second down, or we're going to turn it into a 2-3-yard gain. Now, of course, some of those types of plays end up being explosive plays too. So that's probably number one thing that I've been pleased with Tay, and then he's consistently becoming more consistent, which is great, and that's what we need from the quarterback position.
Coach, you talk about the play of your tight end room. A lot of guys made an impact against North Carolina. I think Dylan Wade, even though he went out early, still might have led the team in receptions. Colin Fox got his first touchdown. Caden Peening, for the first time, he was playing a lot for a true freshman. Just kind of talk about that group and how you plan to utilize them this year.
Yeah, right now it's a little bit of tight end by committee. Here we are. It's still relatively early in the year, but you throw in fall camp and all those other things, so no one's 100%. So that's how it's going to be all year. We're going to have to kind of platoon that position. We do a lot of different things, like we've talked back in fall camp about what the tight end position really is. It's the Swiss Army knife of the offense. So it's good to see all those guys make some plays, but they're learning and growing, and we're not there yet. And that's the cool thing about this game is we get to go back to work tomorrow and continue to get better. And I like to think that we're just going to continue to get better, but we're going to see all those guys play.
What did Caden do for a true freshman to make an impact, early on? And I know he missed pretty much the whole preseason, right? I know Coach said he had a hamstring or something, so he was limited early. So what has he shown to, prove that he's worthy of getting out there for such a young guy?
Yeah, one, he's willing to be physical, and he's a bigger person, so he does a good job with that, which is an important part of the game. He's got good feet. He's got good hands. He moves. He's a cerebral kid. It cares. It matters. He's a football guy, so we knew that he was going to contribute this season pretty early on. Unfortunate for him, he had a couple minor setbacks, but yeah, he's getting closer and closer to being where we want him to be, and there's some time left this season for him to continue and grow. But there's a lot of runway for that guy. He's going to be a good player here.
You said it's a committee approach, and you're kind of like shifting, multiple guys in and out on over the course of a series. How are you kind of like finding that sweet spot of how to use these guys and best utilize what they can do in your offense?
Yeah, with the way we manage our personnel, sometimes there's going to be a specific play that we want to have XYZ guy in, and it might be because his skill set's really tailored for the thing we're asking him to do, whether it's a run play, whether it's pass protection, or maybe, hey, this guy's just really good at running that route. But in the course of a game, you might not be in a situation where you can afford to sub. We got the defense in a look that we want to keep them in. If we sub, they sub. Allows them to get fresh D linemen out there. So with that being said, we'll have some specific plays we want, and it's not just the tight ends, it's all positions. There might be a specific play that we want to have XYZ guy in a certain spot so that he can run that play. But there's layers to this thing. Sometimes you can't sub because you're going to lose your advantage. And then other times there might be a guy that needs to go get Gatorade and he can't play for a couple plays. So all of our players need to know all the positions, and then you only have so many reps in practice. So I know that's kind of a word sandwich for your question, but there's just so many layers to that. But obviously we want to put our players in position to be successful, and sometimes it's going to be like Kylan on a route, or sometimes it might be D Wade, or sometimes it might be Caden or Max. So it just kind of depends on the situation and week by week.
Going into a hostile road environment for the first time, just kind of how do you I know it's possible really to prepare for what it's going to feel like, but just how much is that a focus this week of just making sure the offense is on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, we'll work the environmental things, like the crowd noise and all that, just, because I'm sure it's going to be loud on third down. It's going to be loud in the red zone. So those are just some of the situations we got to manage. But outside of that, it's no different than preparing for any game. You kind of have to handle all the situations. The wacky thing about situational football is you're always going to be over-prepared for those things, and that takes away from other things you want to do. But as long as we have our bases covered, then you can feel real confident. When that situation does come up, you'll be ready to go.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.